We started talking about last segment. We got the question that gets asked sometimes about the Arkansas baseball program. Dave Van Horn has enough cachet to kind of decide when he's going to call it quits, right? And he said, he looks another. He says, he can go another 10 years. I believe him. He's got plenty of energy, and he's a smart man. I could see it. He's earned that, hasn't he?
Absolutely, I think so. And I think that it's silly to kind of suggest otherwise at the moment, especially right now. And fans might just be upset with the way that baseball is playing right now. And I understand that you could have some frustration. But at the end of the day, Dave Van Horn is one of those guys that you let retire when he's ready and not the other way around.
Yeah. Yeah, and you'll say fans are upset, and I was on a show earlier today that brought up the idea of the deficiencies of the team that right now is still ranked 5th in the country in one of the polls, that is in first place in the toughest in the toughest league in college baseball in their division, and just lost their first series to an opponent in over 2 years. So now I understand there are some things that they could pick up on. What concerns you mostly? What's at the top of your list right now?
I think hitting consistently is still an issue. I think that they had plenty of opportunities to come back from those Florida games and score some runs and win those ball games. I mean, I think you can look at Saturday's game specifically and talk about how Arkansas had the opportunity to win that game multiple times. Obviously, Florida regained that lead in the 8th. But the consistency at the plate right now is what is setting teams apart. You're seeing that with Tennessee, right? And their offense is one of a kind and crazy dynamic. They also obviously have a very good pitching rotation too. But hitting is setting teams apart right now. I watch my alma mater play baseball as well, and baseball's big. Where I went to school down at Florida State, and they are struggling to hit at the moment too, and so it's doubly frustrating for me. And I think that's where it is. But the good thing about it is we know that this lineup has bats, and we know that this lineup can score runs. They're going to get there, right? Like, they're going to break out of whatever kind of funk they're in offensively, and hopefully when it matters the most down towards the end of the season, in the postseason, they're going to be one of those hotter offensive teams in the country.
Mm-hmm. And Alyssa, other sports going on, of course, great stuff going on the Hill. Kind of in a sport that I think it's kind of lost in the spring, and I really don't think it should as much as it does with softball. And Arkansas softball obviously playing outstanding right now. For people that haven't been able to keep up with it as much as they might like to, who are some of the names on that softball team that they should definitely know?
Oh, gosh, you could go up and down the lineup, Drew. I mean, you look at someone like Danielle Gibson, and I had the pleasure of sitting down with her and her mom last week for a story we're going to turn later. But this is someone who is in her senior year who has always been impressive, but she's just a fun person to watch. And when you go to a softball game, her IQ of the game jumps off the paper at you. It is incredible the way she plays the game. She's having fun right now playing the game, and you see that. And as someone who loves sports, even if, for baseball, people who love baseball, you can respect how much knowledge she has for the game of softball. She's really fun to watch. Mary Half in the Circle, this is her last year. She's playing really well right now, pitching really well right now. They had that transfer. KB Sides comes from Alabama. And obviously a sweep of Auburn this past weekend was something that she was super excited about because she made the comments before the series started of, I was raised and born in Alabama and I do not like Auburn. Just straight out said it, and you couldn't expect anything less from someone who has played her first 4 years with the Crimson Tide. You can look at Hannah McEwen, who was setting records over the weekend, who plays in the outfield. You have a freshman in Casey Hoffman, who's playing really well right now. You have Taylor Ellsworth, who is their catcher, who's transferred in as well. And Drew, I can continue to go on, but this is a softball program under Courtney Deifel, who deserves the respect and the attention, and they're fun games to go to. They're fun and exciting. They're fast-paced. They're a lot faster than a baseball game. So it's definitely something I encourage people to go out and watch because, one, they deserve it, and two, they win and they're really fun to watch as well.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more, Alyssa. I was an softball SID last year, and I fell in love with the game and fell in love with the way that those athletes really showed up every day and played just as hard as any other sport, and this didn't get the credit that they ultimately deserve. A sport that does get the credit that it deserves, and it's kind of weird since the season's ended. I felt like we've had something new come out of the men's basketball program every single day, except for these last 2 weeks. Has Eric Musselman finally taken a nap, or is he just kind of in the wait and see moment right now with Jalen still out there?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm going to tell you, he never naps and only sleeps a few hours. So I don't necessarily know if saying he's finally gotten some rest is an accurate statement, but I think that he was very just aggressive early on in the portal, which you have to be. And now I think he can kind of sit back and see if any more chips are going to fall, what's going to happen, and take it slow, kind of like he did with Isaiah Joe. You know, we knew Mason Jones was gone. We knew that Isaiah Joe was testing the waters and had the options to come back. Ironically, it's now with another guy out of Fort Smith Northside who also won a state title down there with Isaiah Joe and Jalen Williams. So we'll see what happens. But look, after they lost to Duke, sitting in that press conference in San Francisco, Eric Musselman said, the minute we leave here, we work on next year. That's what he's doing. And, I mean, he has been a man of his word through and through with that statement. And it's really exciting, and it's fun to talk about the potential of basketball. And one thing that I know that Eric Musselman wants is for his teams to be talked about, for Arkansas basketball to continue to be a topic of conversation when the season's not going, and he's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, you can tell that means something to him because these whole Skull Sparks tweets that I see come out, you know, that show you which program generated the most interactions on whatever social media site they're talking about. Muss is always at the top of the list, at least on Twitter. He's like that means something to him, but you know, that's also I think for him, like that's the way that he's reflecting towards recruits, and really anybody on Twitter. Recruits are all on Twitter.
Absolutely, and I think that it all is an approach based off the players, the sport, and the coaches. Right, like that is totally Muss's MO. That's what he cares about. He cares about what's seen on social media, how things are received on social media. I think basketball is a much more flashy sport. You're going to have a lot more kids who, I mean, from the NBA down, just the egos is the wrong word, but just the flashiness and the swagger that basketball has is different from baseball and from football. And, like, look, it works for us. Pittman's not that way. Pittman's on Twitter every now and then, and it works, and that's okay. Dave Van Horn's barely on Twitter, and that works, and that's okay. So there is no wrong or right reason, but for basketball specifically, I think that's what the sport is, and you got to kind of keep up with the Joneses. And if you're not out there showing off the latest, you know, shoes you got painted or uniforms you're going to wear or stuff that you're doing or concerts you went to with Muss, I mean, guys gravitate to that kind of stuff.
They do, and it's funny that you'd even mentioned Dave Van Horn's Twitter for a moment there, because I had already started to look. Like, Dave has 52 total tweets since he opened up his account in 2015. Like, how long do you think it's taken us to pick 52 tweets? Probably in the last just 3 days.
Right. And isn't it funny? I think, Phil, if you still have it up, he only follows 2 people.
Yes.
And I think one of them is Eric Musselman.
One is Muss. That's exactly right. One is Muss. The other is Arkansas baseball. And that's it. And I've said it was like, I'm going to get you to follow me on Twitter at some point, man. I just want to be one of those 3.
Right. Golly, what did Muss do? That's what I want to know.
He's an excellent follow, Alyssa. I mean, even if I wasn't working in this part, you know, where I had to cover this, he's definitely a guy that I'd follow on Twitter. Kind of wrap up the full spring sports and everything going on right now. We talked about it last week. Not that many interesting things coming out of spring football, but did anything stand out to you in Kendall Rogers or Barry Odom's press conference from over the weekend?
Kendall Briles, don't worry. We had Kendall Rogers on last week.
Sorry.
He's got college baseball.
I'm sorry. My bad.
Hey, no, 100. No, I get you. Hey, I'm going to be 100% honest with you, Drew. So I took the family down to Austin, Texas for the weekend and spent some time with family. So I only got to see snippets of Kendall Briles and Barry Odom's press conference. But regardless of what they said about anything else, the only thing that matters is how much they talked about and the statements they said about why they're staying here and why they stayed at Arkansas and why Arkansas matters to them. And I think above anything else, everything will work itself out in the fall. Things they say in the fall are going to be much more important than they say in the spring. The best thing that they could have said for Razorback fans was, we love Arkansas. I'm here. Loyalty matters to me. I think that was huge when Kendall Briles said loyalty is a big deal, and I couldn't look KJ Jefferson in the eye and tell him I was leaving. I mean, that in itself was all he had to say. He could have sat down, said that, gotten up, and it would have been one of the best press conferences he's ever given, in my opinion. I think that's all that mattered, and I think that assurance was huge.
I don't think there's any doubt. And you mentioned a word that Sam Pittman puts at the top of his list of things he expects from people that work for him or play for him. One is toughness. The other is loyalty. And yeah. I think that definitely played the other day in front of the cameras when you were in Austin. And I was just going to say, I wondered if you were even going to make it to Austin because of your situation with your on-screen name and your real name and everything. I'm glad you got there. I'm glad you got there.
My mom's face when we got to TSA at Northwest Arkansas Airport, and the guy there. Luckily, there's no one else in line. It's a 10 o'clock flight, and the guy there was training and checking. And he was like, "This says orange," and my mom's face was like, "No, I put Rattler," and I was like, "No, you clearly did not." My kids' names were right, so that was that. But a 15-minute phone call worked it out, and I was able to get home, so that was good. But that was something else. I was like, "Mom," she was like, "I'm sorry, I don't know." And she is my mom. I was Alyssa Orange for 29 years of my life, and that's okay. But I've been Rattler for almost 6, so thanks, Mom.
It's been a while. It's been a while.
BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs, sports info, and odds. Find all the latest sports developments, including this week's odds for the Masters Championship and the start of Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino and poker games. It's super easy to get started, so join today. Learn why everyone is saying BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to wager on popular sports and games. Bet online, where the game starts.